What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I'm here for one of my quick hit scouting report videos. This is for last night's Sunday night football game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, we don't care so much about the Chiefs because we don't play them, at least not until the playoffs, which we hopefully will make it to the playoffs and have to face them at some point if they should make it as well, which they are expected to. But until then, we don't care. We do care about the Ravens, on the other hand, as we play them week 10 in Miami. And so we are going to take a look at that. This is their week 2 scouting report. And this is going to have, league standings updated through yesterday. That is not going to include the game that is supposed to be played tonight here in a little bit. It actually is not quite even starting yet as of this video, but it will not count that. So let's see. Let's go ahead and get into this because the Ravens ended up winning against the Kansas City Chiefs. It was a tough game. It was a great game. The Ravens, I mean, it was just a great game. Look, at the end of the day, both offenses were performing really well. Both defenses were performing really well. It was just an all-around great game. The Ravens did come away with it with a 36-35 victory. And let's take a look into it deeper. Now, this is a game, when we play them, well, since the beginning of the season, but, up to this point, I expect, unfortunately, this to be a loss for the Dolphins. I mean, the Ravens have just had our number. They're a really good team. And if you're being honest, especially even after yesterday's performance, I'm not sure that we're quite ready to compete with the KCs and the Baltimores, right? Like, this game was obviously a lot more entertaining and a lot better than our game. But in addition to that, look at this though, right? This game shows you what happens when you have two powerhouse teams that are built, completely, right? Because they both have really, sure, they do have their flaws and their weaknesses. But they both have really good defenses and really high-powered offenses. And this is the kind of game that you get. Right, so Baltimore had 481 total yards. They gave up 405 to KC. Ravens had 230 through the air and gave up 343. But they had 251 on the ground, the Ravens did. Obviously, a lot of that was Lamar Jackson, and that's something that's going to be tough for us to deal with when we have to play them. But they only gave up 62 on the ground to the Chiefs. Baltimore had 7.1 yards per play. KC had 8.3. I mean, that's crazy, right? Like that's high. That's really high. And so, but it just goes to show you, man. And then obviously the high scoring game. It just goes to show you what happens when you have high powered offenses. But look, I mean, there were a number of turnovers. KC lost a fumble. They also threw an interception. Baltimore threw 2, right? Including a pick 6. Jackson threw a pick 6 early in the game. Tyrann Mathieu had 2 interceptions and was having a great day for himself, right? So it's not like there weren't hardly any sacks. Baltimore only gave up 1, but it was still a good defensive day too. They still performed pretty well overall. Third down efficiency, Baltimore was 54%, and they held KC to 16%. That's pretty intense, bro. But and that's one of those things that just goes to show you, because once I get into the league standings, it might make it seem like the Baltimore defense is not very good, but they had to play the Raiders in week 1 that scored 33 points and is looking, especially after this past week, is looking like a team that could potentially actually end up being really good. We'll have to wait and see what happens with Derek Carr, because he does have an injury. But, and then they played the Kansas City Chiefs, who are expected to, be in the playoffs, win their division, and possibly make it to the Super Bowl, right? So, holding them to 16% on third down, that's pretty good, right? So I think, as far as that goes, I think the current league standings for the Baltimore's defense for a lot of them, I think is a little bit misleading. Some of their categories that they're ranked pretty well in, but I think over the course of the season, you'll see that they'll probably end up settling a little bit more closer to the top because they do have a really good defense. Baltimore had the ball for 35-59 as opposed to KC's 24-01. Baltimore had 8 penalties and KC had 5. Okay, now let's take a look at the Ravens for a more in-depth statistical analysis. Lamar Jackson was 18 for 26, 239, one touchdown, 2 interceptions, but he also had 16 rushes, 107 yards, and 2 touchdowns there with a 6.7 average. Add in Tyson Williams, who had 13 for 77 and a 5.9. Latavius Murray, who had 9 for 36, a touchdown and a 4 average. And Devontae Freeman, who threw in 2 rushes for 29 yards and a 14.5. And that's the thing, bro, is like, I don't know if their run game is really even... I mean, yeah, losing guys like Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, that's huge. But, man, with Lamar Jackson and these guys behind them I mean, look at these numbers. Look at these numbers. They're pretty fucking great. They're pretty fucking great. So, I'm not, obviously it is one game, but it is against the Kansas City Chiefs. So, what I'm saying is I don't think that the Ravens run game is really as lacking as some people thought, even myself included, as some people thought that, it would be. They're actually, stepping up and answering the bell. So this is going to be a tough team, man. And unfortunately, I think the Ravens will ultimately come out on top. But who knows? It is still, several weeks away. It's 8 weeks away. So we'll see how things play out. All right, in the receiving game, Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown was 6 of 10, a buck 13 and a touchdown. Mark Andrews, 5 of 5, 57. Sammy Watkins, 4 of 7, 44. Tyson Williams added 2 of 2 for 16. And they got weapons, man. They got weapons. And then just real quick, as I usually do, I will scroll through so you can take a gander at the rest of these. In case you care, if you want to stop it, pause the video, go ahead and do that. Now we will take a look at the Chiefs, though, so we can do a little bit of comparative analysis between the two offenses while also seeing, some data for their defense, right, the Ravens defense. So they allowed Mahomes to go 24 of 31 for 343 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Now, I say allowed, but, man, I mean, that's the thing, though, right, is Patrick Mahomes is special. Lamar Jackson is a pretty unique quarterback as well, right? And so these guys do things that a lot of other quarterbacks just can't do. And so that's why no matter what the defense they go up against, they're generally going to perform. Unless, of course, as you saw in the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs, you don't give them an offensive line. And that's why they did so much to rebuild it this season. Anyway, rushing for them, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 13 rushes for 46 yards and a 3.5, and Tyreek Hill had 1 for 15. And that was about it. Like I said, I mean, they didn't really allow them to do much rushing. But in the passing game, Kelsey was 7 of 8 for 109 and a touchdown. Byron Pringle, 2 of 2, 63, 1. Mecole Hardman, 5 of 8, 55. Demarcus Robinson, 3 of 4, 46 and a touchdown. Blake Bell, 1 of 1 for 20. Jerick McKinnon, 1 for 14. Tyreek Hill, 3 of 4 for 14. Michael Burton, 1 for 11. And Jody Fortson for 1 for 11. So, they got a lot of weapons. They were spreading it around, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, and then just a quick look at the rest of these statistics, just so you have it, just so it's in the video. And if you care to take a pause and maybe you like the kicking game. Maybe you want to see the numbers. Maybe you play fantasy and you want to keep track of punters and shit for, I don't know, bro. I don't know. But anyway, that's that. Let me go ahead and swap over to the league standings now, because this is going to give us a bit more of a complete picture. And yeah, so let's take a look at it. So the Baltimore Ravens, and so real quick, of course, as always, all stats are in the per game format except the offensive categories of total yards, total passing, total rushing, and total points. That's obviously their totals on the season. So after 2 games, The Ravens have a total of 887 yards, which puts them at third in the league. They are 443.5 yards per game, which is also third in the league. Passing, they're only at 474, which is 18th, and 237 per game, which is 20th. But obviously then when you couple it with all the rest of this, it's not really that big a deal, right? And they're obviously pretty efficient, move the ball, and can score. So total rushing, they have 440 yards on the season. Obviously Lamar Jackson has a lot of that himself. They are first in the league with 220 per game, also first. They have 63 points on the season, which is fourth, and they have 31.5 per game, which is fifth. Defensively, they have given up 448 yards per game, which is 31st. 389 passing yards per game, which is 32nd. See, and that's part of what I'm saying, right? Like, that's a lot. But again, the two teams that they played at the beginning were the Raiders and the Chiefs, who are, you know, if you're keeping it real, especially the Chiefs, obviously, you're going to kind of expect there to be a lot of yards and passing yards in particular. But they're sixth in run defense, only allowing 72 rush yards per game. 27th in points. Again, I think that's a little misleading because I think they will go up as the year goes on. Because I don't think they're that bad. They just played, you know, two relatively good offenses in the first two games. And one super-powered offense this week rather. But they're at 34, and that has them at 27th. Takeaways, though, they're at 16th currently. Obviously, there is still some grouping with a lot of teams that are tied. It's still pretty early in the season, and this will get much clearer as we go. But they have 3 takeaways on the season, which has them at 16th. 2 interceptions, which has them at 12th. 1 fumble, which has them at 21st, 3 sacks, which has them at 20th, and 8 passes defensed, which puts them at 14th in the league. And just so you can see here, the Dolphins, this is what I have for the Dolphins. On the left-hand side is where they were at prior to the update, right? So obviously the update, so this is where they were in their first game, and this is now with the second game being put in. You know, so next week, after the week 2 totals will be on the left, and the week 3 totals will be on the right-hand side. And then the arrows indicate, you know, whether they went up or down, and, you know, whatever the statistic is, and the color is good or bad. So if it's for the standings and total points, we obviously didn't score any points, so we're at 17th. Last week, we were at 27th in the league. We dropped to 31st, right? Or, you know, defensively, you know, here we have a down green arrow because after week 1, we gave up 393 yards in that first game. After 2 games, our average went down to 353.5. That's good, right? We want it to go down, so that's why it's a green arrow. And in this case, we went from 17th in the league to 15th overall, a green up arrow, because that's the direction we want to go in. So there you have it. That's an explanation for how I do my stuff. And that is my quick hit scouting report video for week 2 for the Baltimore Ravens. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. Of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.